Jared here. In this video, we're looking at the steering components, the front spindle, more specifically, this tie rod end. So these tie rod ends, or any of these control arms, can be very difficult to take off. A lot of times when you're taking these off, you want to service something else. A lot of times when you're taking these off, you want to save them. You don't want to damage them. You know, some people jam pickle forks in here, and some people jam hammers and heat and pry bars, and a lot of people don't know what they're doing when they're taking front ends apart. A lot of front ends should not go back together the way people take them apart. Let me just tell you. Okay, so. I've had lots of experience taking these front ends apart. I'm going to show you some tips and tricks. The first thing to know is most of the time, all these components, especially tie rods, are always going to be conical shaped. So I have an arm here somewhere to show you. Right here you can see how it's a cone type shape. So what happens is it's tapered. So whenever it goes in there, whenever you tighten it down, it sits in there and it seals itself really tight in a tapered fashion. So just like I was, in my previous videos telling you about how things are seized, a lot of times in car, everything's seized, everything's been on there. A lot of times it's the first time stuff's come apart. So the first thing we want to do is we want to clean up these threads, because if we were to try to take this nut off and it were to come a little bit off and then it gets seized up here, then it's just going to start spinning. This thing right here, if I tried to, I could probably, I can even spin it by hand. So if I can spin this by hand, because this is just a socket. These are little universal joints right here, little sockets. That's how these front end parts are all put together. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a wire brush and clean these threads up. The best way to do it is if you had an air tool or electric tool or something with a little wheel on it, you could just zzz, rip it around there and it'd be done. But I've got a brush somewhere, and brush is right here. So see the rust coming off of it. You can get as much rust off of it as you can. And then the next step on this, you definitely don't want to skip this step. The next step is some penetrating oil. So go ahead and just cake the penetrating oil in there. And this next step is, this is on the ground on a jack stand, but if this was up in the air, you could use a screw jack. But we have a floor jack right here. So the thing that this floor jack, what it does is it's gonna put extra pressure on this joint. It's not gonna damage anything, but it's gonna put extra pressure on this joint. See, I'm even raising the suspension. The suspension is pushing down on it. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna stick the socket on it. All right, now we cleaned up the threads, we put extra force on that conical joint. Now we're gonna hit it with an impact. If we try to take it off by hand, it might not jolt it enough to zip it right off. But with an impact, it's gonna give it enough jolt to hopefully zip it all the way off. I would say 90% of the time, if you do those two steps, the impact will take it off the rest of the way. So let's try. Now, it's not just going to come out. They never do. I mean, you might get super lucky, but it's just not going to come out. These things are in there. And I mean, it's definitely not a smart idea, because you're going to mushroom the threads. If you just go hitting the top of this, it's just going to mushroom. One thing that you can do is, it's still not the smartest idea, but you can put this nut back on here and to where it's flush. It has to be absolutely flush to the bolt. Flush it out, and then you can hit it from the top. You need to be careful about this ABS wheel speed sensor. You might want to take that out before you do any of this. But anyway, I don't like that anyway. This is a brass hammer. If you don't have one yet, go ahead and get one. In my opinion, this is aluminum, but if you be careful, you're not going to damage it. If you do mushroom it a little bit on this bottom side, you have to flush it up. If you mushroom this and then you put this back in, there's a chance you'll put a crack in it. So you definitely have to be careful about this. So what I'm gonna do actually is I'm gonna hit it from the side first, and then I'm gonna love tap it from the top. But before I do that, I got the nut off. Now I'm gonna put a little bit of penetrating oil down here in that part. So let's go next. All right, that's all it took. I didn't have to hit it from the top. But if it would have been more than a few hits, I would have moved to the top and give it some love taps. And I would have moved back, not to the same side, I would have tried to move to this side. All right, now you wanna look, you wanna put a straight edge on the bottom of that. If you mushroomed this at all, you wanna straighten it back out, but that's all there is to it.